Hey there, Midas Letter viewers. I've got a special guest, Steve White, CEO of Harvest Health and Recreation, joins me now. Steve, how's it going?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm well as well. Thanks for asking. Steve, the cannabis sector has been challenging to say the least over the last couple of years, and obviously, Harvest Health and Recreation has not been exempt from the trials and tribulations of the cannabis market. Tell me how Harvest Health and Recreation has transformed from the great promise of 2017 into the faint promise of 2021.
Yeah, for us, this is pretty easy. I mean, when you're talking to investors, you're talking about one set of facts. When you're talking about running a business, which is what we're responsible for doing, it's a different set of facts. For us, we have seen tremendous growth in our business. We are positioned to continue to see tremendous growth in our business. We're building out facilities in states where we're seeing big returns. And that's really what we can concentrate on. I mean, there's the great promise of cannabis. It's not a false promise. Businesses are growing, businesses are becoming more and more profitable, and we are among those.
Okay, great. Then, so tell me about, you guys have had a rough go of it. Share price issue-wise, I assume was partly behind some of the deals falling apart that you had going. What's the prognosis for Harvest Health going into 2021 and beyond?
2021 is so far looks like a really good year for Harvest Health and Recreation. We saw the beginning of recreational sales in the state of Arizona, the state where we have the largest footprint. That started on January 22nd. We're an organization that hasn't seen one of these big catalysts affect one of our major markets yet. So Arizona for us is a first. We're looking forward to announcing in our first quarter earnings how that's gone and giving additional detail related to it. We're also positioning the organization to take advantage of those catalysts in states like Florida, Maryland, and Pennsylvania when those occur.
You bet. Okay, so where's the bulk of the revenue coming from now? You got a projection of $380 million in 2021. Where's all that going to come from?
Yeah, what we've said is $380 million is a revenue target that we have a high level of confidence in. If you look at what we've announced previously, the bulk of that revenue comes from retail. The bulk of that revenue comes from our four core states, Arizona, Florida, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. It's fair to assume that with the additional recreational sales occurring in the state of Arizona, that's going to take a bigger portion of the overall pie. But we expect continued growth in Arizona and the other three core markets throughout 2021.
Sure. Is it safe to say that the available pool of companies that you might consider eligible for a takeover has diminished substantially in the last couple of years?
It has. I mean, the difficulty associated with larger mergers or larger acquisitions is the duplication of assets, how those assets pair. And so if you are looking at a company that's large and you put the two companies together, but the result of that requires a significant divestiture, it doesn't make as much sense as it would if the existing company is really a sum of the two going forward. And so as companies continue to grow and as they reach their maximum capacity in a number of states that have limits, it gets harder and harder. That being said, tuck-in acquisitions are available for people still, and they're things that we look at all the time.
Sure. To what extent would you say the absence of serious follow-through by the Biden administration on their sort of not firm promises towards a national regulation strategy of cannabis, but certainly towards national decriminalization, that hasn't materialized, and they sort of broadcast a reversal of that by prosecuting 5 employees for past cannabis use. Is that having a negative impact on the whole industry's ability to move forward?
It's not with the actual business. It is with the investment community. I mean, if you think about, look, our history with the federal government has been a checkered one, to put it politely. And so as businesses, we don't need help from the federal government. What we need is for them to get out of our way a little bit. Now, the Biden administration was pretty clear that cannabis reform is not something that's going to be addressed in the first 100 days, but it's going to come after that. The expectation from the investment community was that it would happen sooner. And so they're within the time frame. As they start looking at it now, it's kind of the appropriate time for them to do so. With respect to the folks that were fired, if you look at usage rates, cannabis usage rates, I can promise you there are more than 5 people in the Biden administration who admitted past cannabis use. What they said in association with those terminations was that there were a lot of other factors that were considered. So it does not appear as though they went through and anybody who admitted to previous cannabis use was fired. I don't think that was true, because if it was, they would have lost half the administration, including the vice president.
Right, right. Okay, great. So then, in terms of the landscape of taxation, excise taxes, county taxes, state taxes, has that improved at all across the U.S.? I mean, in some markets, for California, for example, the taxation burden on cannabis retailers especially was causing a lot of challenges in becoming profitable. Is that situation getting better, or is it getting worse, or is it pretty much the same old, same old?
I think it's same old, really. And I know that's not the answer that people want to hear, but there are certain states and certain municipalities that do overtax cannabis. And when you look at it, what are the real implications of that is you're looking to, when you create a regulated and taxed marketplace, you're trying to transition people who are previously cannabis users into that regulated marketplace. If you put high barriers for that transition, the transition is going to occur more slowly. It's not to say that the illicit market isn't going to slowly erode in the state of California. It is to say that it's going to slowly erode in the state of California because it's easier in many instances to still use the illicit market.
What is going to drive regulators to sort of have a more cooperative tax sort of system in the near term? As you know, in Canada, for example, I know you guys don't have any interest in Canada per se, but in Canada, the absence of enforcement is really driving a resurgence in the black market in Canada, because there's this medical regime where a lot of people can hide behind and grow commercial quantities of weed that goes out into the legitimate market in some cases and defeats it. So is that still an issue for you guys in any states? And do you think the states are sort of looking at that in a way to say, well, if we want this thing to succeed and triumph over illegitimate supplies, we've got to make the tax regime more sort of appealing?
Yeah, regulators are getting smarter over time. And so what the understanding is you have to ask yourself, what is the point of allowing a regulated marketplace? And that is municipalities. There are a number of things that impact the effectiveness of that, one of which is a tax rate, but there are a number of other things, like how quickly does it take to allow somebody to walk into a store and buy a full array of cannabis products from the time that people have voted on it? Because what happens is if you stretch out that time period and there's a demand, and people aren't being prosecuted in the same way, an illicit market is going to take hold. If you look at Arizona, it's one of the reasons why in Arizona we all push so hard to, when citizens voted for it in Arizona in November, you actually saw legal sales occurring in January, which is by far faster than we've ever seen in any state. The point of all of that was to make sure that the regulated marketplace would take the demand and that an illicit market wouldn't take hold. And I think the transition in Arizona, because of that thoughtfulness, has been a very successful one. And I think when you look at statistics, what you're going to find is that transition is going to occur much more quickly in Arizona than in places that drag out that process.
Sure. So recently we saw New York join the ranks of the licensed states, and which are the states that are sort of teetering on the brink of legalization are most exciting to you?
For us at Harvest, it would be Maryland, Florida, and Pennsylvania. And the reason they're most exciting to us is because those are states where we have a presence. Those are states where we are preparing for a legalization movement, and they're places that are going to have the most impact on our bottom line. All three of those states are having conversations today, and those conversations are, starting to reach a higher and higher pitch. And when you see states like New Jersey and New York and Virginia vote in favor of it, it does place pressure on the states that are near there to do the same. And so we do think it is really a matter of time before we see a lot of dominoes falling across the U.S.
Finally, Steve, with the sort of the end of the Falcon acquisition, and I'm not sure to what extent you really are comfortable to talk about that, but you still ended up with 10% of the company, which is where I kind of sort of cheered for you guys. But does that mean that there might still be a future with Falcon, or is that just out of the question now?
The way we looked at that is for us, it was important for us to design a settlement in a way that allowed us to benefit in the event of a liquidity event there. And so it is not likely that we're going to actually acquire that organization. What is more likely true is that in the event that they receive significant capital and or are sold, then Harvest will receive a benefit for that.
All right, that's great. Steve, we're going to leave it there for now. I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to talking to you more in the future. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. You too.
You bet. Bye for now.